Chat show. Today is the 13th of July. Now, today the moon's going to happen. All sorts of strange things are going to happen today. Apart from all of that, we're going to hope that no portals are going to be open for demons to come through. The angels are around, but there are where demons are trying to get onto Earth. Now, if the Earth is really flat and we have a dome, then there's a crack in the dome. If the Earth is round and we're being protected by God, then we're lucky. I know one of my guests, he doesn't believe in God and he does the talk of God, but something is keeping us alive, and I think it's God. So there you go. Now, IMF. Ghana, my mother country, the country that I love, the country, my beloved, Ghana, has promised, this administration promised that they were not going to go to the IMF, and then they did. We need to know, first of all, we are here today to educate ourselves. Now, I've got two guests here with me today. Kwame, law lecturer in Australia, long-time political activist in Ghana, currently a consultant in fisheries, petroleum, international law. He is a member for Organising for Ghana as a progressive organization. I don't know what I'm saying here, but you know. But anyway, and then I have Kpabitey Nyako as well. He is a general practice surveyor by profession. He's also a researcher, political and economic risk consultant to various organizations in the private and public sectors in the UK. He is also a researcher in governance, economic and finance, risk assessment, finance issues relating to Ghana, his country of birth. He is somebody who when the spirit takes him, he takes a plane, goes to Ghana, and meditates on rocks. Now, you may not understand it. I don't understand it, but there you go. This is a man. Welcome to my show, Kiki's Chat Show. One of the things that I do not do is talk about sex, politics, and religion. Somehow, I get embroiled in it. Now, everyone wants to hear something. Well, my guests, some of them want to hear about the IMF. My first question is, who or what is the IMF? Now, this question goes to Kwame.
I see. All right, let me start off by saying hello to everybody. And I actually want to start off with the God bit first because well, I suspect that the remark about people who don't believe in God was directed at me. Now, I think that simply because Ghana has become a very religious place, there's no harm starting off with a God question. Now, it's not that I don't believe in God. I actually think that for virtually everything that we do, God is irrelevant. What? He may exist, she may exist. I know you've got a shocked look on your face.
God
and I actually don't have any problem with God. I actually don't have any problem with God at all. I neither believe nor disbelieve. I actually just don't think that he or she is relevant. He or she may exist. I don't know. but I don't think that God should be our first priority in addressing the things that bother us. And one of the reasons we're in our current trouble is that Kenuforiata has found God. Okay? Kenuforiata has found God. And half the time when he should be paying attention to matters to do with earthly things, he's off on his head somewhere praying. And that is one of the reasons we are in this current mess. And what he should actually do, if he takes his God thing seriously, is to get some really extra neat white clothes and pray for this whole mess that we're in to go away. Okay, that's where I want to actually start this thing off, because one of the reasons that we are in this mess also is that people have been so busy praying and hoping and looking up to all sorts of pastors that they've not been paying attention to what has been going on. In that sense, the God stuff is a distraction, and it accounts in part for where we are today. Interestingly enough, many, many years ago, the the conclave of Catholic bishops, they would have come out to say something on this IMF thing by now, and it would have been backed by hard, solid facts. The current set of pastors don't know anything about anything, which is why they're not saying anything about what is one of the most important turns in our history for the last decade. On a more positive note, some of the best music that is being created across the continent today comes from gospel music artists. I listen to them all the time. So I haven't answered your IMF question, but we've got a good start. We've been doing way too much God, and that has allowed all sorts of bad things to happen to us whilst we've been looking elsewhere. And if the God thing works, then we should pray and, led by Ken, and the whole business will go away. So I'll let the other guests talk, and then I'll come back and I'll answer your IMF question in a structured way. Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
who and what are the IMF? Your views. Everyone has a different view about IMF. I think it's important that we know from the onset who they are. And then we'll be able to maybe send a message to all the priests and people of all the denominations so that they know who the IMF are. And then hopefully they may comment on the IMF.
So, Mr. Kpabitey, over to you.
Well, okay. Well, we know them as the International Monetary Fund, isn't it? Set up by the Bretton Woods institutions after the Second World War. So, well, they claim their aim is to stabilize the world's economy. So, obviously, every country who is a member is supposed to chip in some amount of money. I'm not sure whether it's every year or every few years, so that when the economy is in trouble, then they can come to your aid. Obviously, what I'm aware of is it's not only developing countries who are members of the IMF. UK is a member. I remember even when we were in secondary school in the 1970s, UK economy got into a lot of trouble, and they also had to go to the IMF for some advice. However, with regards to Ghana specifically, it's looking that like we are always messing up our economy, and we always have to go to the IMF for economic financial support, policy support, to put things right. And I was doing some research recently, and I found out that since 1966. There, I think 17 times to the IMF. And obviously, this tells me something. This tells me that, I mean, this evidence is incontrovertible. It shows that we've always been messing up our economy. So basically, the issue I wish to address is how this current, well, I know most governments in Ghana do approach the IMF, but this current government, which swore that it would never approach the IMF when it came into office in 2017, suddenly are spinning a narrative that they are now actually going to the IMF for monetary support and loan, but they're going to the IMF just for policy advice to rectify issues. And their reasons going to the IMF is to spin this narrative that Ghana's economic and financial issues stems from the Russian-Ukrainian war, the COVID-19 pandemic, and I mean the general world economic situation. This is something I really need to challenge, or I would wish to challenge, because my hypothesis is that our current economic difficulties have been and is as a result of bad management of the economy by the economic management team, right from probably the president to the vice president. How would I describe him? Famous Koforidua, who has been at the head of economic policy for, I mean, since the new government came in 2017. And I think we can trace all our current difficulties, all our current problems, to the very, the policies that he has implemented, and that's what's causing this. So I will hand over to Mr. Mfodwo to add to the IMF and how it originated and how it can help us out of this mess.
Before we do that, can I just say that he is the finance minister? Finance.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Finance minister.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Kwame, help us.
Okay, so the International Monetary Fund, yes, an institution set up at the end of the Second World War. Its aspirations was to manage international monetary affairs, whilst the aspirations of the World Bank at the time was to provide investment. So the World Bank or the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, because this was immediately after the Second World War, and basically the whole place needed to be reconstructed. So the International Monetary Fund was supposed to look after monetary affairs, in particular, bring about a situation where countries did not use devaluation of currencies as a weapon of policy against each other, because you can use monetary policy. For example, the China has been accused by the United States of keeping the value of the renminbi, the Chinese currency, artificially low, so that Chinese goods are much cheaper to buy than American goods. Now, if that claim is true, then what you're actually doing is you're using monetary policy to basically advantage yourself over somebody else in international trade. So the International Monetary Fund, one of its objectives is to make sure that people don't fiddle around with money and currency things as a way of gaining competitive advantage over each other. But more importantly, and virtually everybody's a member of the International Monetary Fund. You pay money into the fund, and when you have problems, the fund actually gives you money according to what they call a quota arrangement. And you can borrow 100% of your quota up to, I think, 433% of your quota or something like that. Ghana is actually limited in what we can borrow from the fund, because we have done a significant number of borrowings, all of which we have not actually paid back. So that's one of the problems facing the current administration. And you find me just laughing from time to time because the whole thing's just been completely idiotic. Now, so Ghana can go to the IMF to get money to assist Ghana implement a program that Ghana designs and discusses with the International Monetary Fund. And the International Monetary Fund will set certain conditions to be met before it will lend Ghana money. If we just go and ask for our quota back, no conditions are set because that's just our own money. But anything above our own money, it is other people's money that is being lent to us. And therefore, we have to meet certain conditionalities. But one of the reasons why we have to meet certain conditionalities as well is that the people who run the IMF have a particular view of the world. There are particular instruments and particular ways in which they do things. So that if you don't actually do things in the ways that they think is correct, and the ways that they think it's correct can be challenged, and it has been challenged, then they will not give you money. Now, let me just point out that this particular going to the International Monetary Fund is because it's not even necessarily that we need, well, okay, let me put it this way. We need money. We need money because for something like the last 12 years or more, and this is both NDC and NPP, for a variety of reasons which it's not possible to go into at this stage, what we basically used to do to run the economy is that at the start of every year, Setekwe was doing it, Ken was doing it, and Ken came and did it with a vengeance because the only thing that Ken knows how to do is to raise money. That's all he's been doing all his life, raising money. So this was like, heaven to him. So at the start of every year, they would go to the international capital markets, to what's called the Eurobond market, and basically ask people to lend us up to $3 billion US at the start of every year. Then they would use a portion of that $3 billion to pay off principal on previous debts, which was accruing. If the year was 2016 and they went to borrow the $3 billion, half of it would go to pay off things that we had borrowed which were falling due in 2016, and also interest on loans that they had to pay interest on 2016. And then half of the $3 billion will be used to do things in the country itself. And the first thing that the money was used for was the dollars was changed into cedis, and it was used to pay public servants. So none of that money that we were borrowing was actually being used to do anything productive, to put us in a position to pay back what we had borrowed. So when Ken came in through Data Bank, which he partly owns, and Black Star, which Charles Edubuahin actually partly owns, right? They basically went to town and just borrowed. Now, so let me just give you, I'll have to read because unfortunately it was not possible to get the chart up on
No, I'm gonna try and get it up. I'm gonna try.
Okay, so let me just read.
While you're talking.
Let me just read and then I'll stop. So we know exactly the problem that we are facing. So basically what they did, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what they did when they came into power was to go on a bond borrowing spree. You basically get money from people and you give them a bond, a document which says that when you decide to pay, you pay. So what is the bond profile for Ghana? 12 US Euro bonds. There may be more, but 12 US Euro bonds was on the cards as at 2020, right? 12. Total amount of money, $10.2 billion borrowed. 2022, we have to pay a certain amount of money. Interest rate that we've been paying up until 2022, 9.25%. 2023, again, we have to pay probably about $1 billion. Interest rate that we've been paying up until now on the 2023 is 7.875. 2026, interest rate is 8.125%. we have to pay probably 1 billion. 2027, first tranche, 6.37 interest. 2027, we have to pay 2 sets, 1 billion or maybe 2 billion each. So 2027 set 1, 6.375% interest, which we've been paying. 2027 sets 2, 7.875%, which we've been paying. 2030, another one that we have to pay in 2030. Interest rate 10.75%. 2032, another one that we have to pay 2 years later. Interest rate 8.125% up until then every year. 2035, 7.875%. 2049, 8.627%. 2051, 8.95%. 2061, these are all years in which we have to pay principal, but until then we are paying interest. And the interest is the amounts that I have read to you. Now, let me just close by saying that, in effect, on each of these loans, if, for example, until 2022, we basically have been paying, if we contracted a loan to be paid back in 2026, we contracted it, say, in 2018, we've been paying interest on the 2022 loan, we've been paying interest on the 2023 loan, then we've been paying interest on the 2026. I give them my drift. So you're actually having to add up all these interest payments, for each of which is attached to a particular loan which falls due in a particular year. And then when the loan falls due, when its time is up, you have to pay the principal as well. And Ken and others are just, they're just mad, completely crazy. And this is the situation we're in now. And we're now in a situation where there is not enough money to service the debts, to pay the principal that is falling due 2022, 2023, 2026. Do you see the problem? And our petroleum is gone down the chute. Nothing's happening to bring in any major money from the petroleum fields that some of us spent years trying to defend from the Ivorians. The gas fields, which are supposed to bring in money, they are at a standstill because ENI and the local Ghanaian firm are having a fight. And there's actually nothing happening in terms of bringing in revenue. All these things made sense, perhaps, to keep whole because there was supposed to be money coming in. At the moment, there's no money coming in at all. And yet we have to pay these debts. So they looked at, and so the final thing that actually happened to them is that the capital markets people, in their thinking, the things that were going on in the heads of the people who lend the money is this mess that I just read out to you. So the last time, about 18 months ago, that they went to try and get money to do their usual 3 billion borrowing to play around with, the capital markets said no, because when we look at your profile, you can't possibly add on yet another loan when you've got all this weight on you, 2022, 2023, 2026, 2027, 2030. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the mess. That's the mess. And I decided to do it this way because everybody in the town is not talking about this seriously. That's why we've gone to the IMF. Now, there's another facet of this which is not being discussed anywhere, and I've written something which I've put out and asked people to circulate because, quite frankly, I'm tired. These people are my classmates. Some of them are my relatives. Some of them, despite all this nonsense that they are up to, some of them, I don't know about 10, but some of them actually still remain my friends, right? In all this shit that is going on, right? But the simple fact of the matter is that they've brought the country up against a wall, and there's one. Somebody says we've lost the sound. Can you hear me?
No, they can. It was previously. They can hear you now.
Okay, now.
We can hear
so
you
the
now.
main thing, the main issue at the moment, which the more important issue, which they are not actually discussing, and they're not discussing it because people like Gabby, intend to make money after causing this mess. And I'll explain what I mean. You see, there are two sets of negotiations that are taking place now. There's a negotiation with the IMF to get possibly maybe $2.5 billion to help us out. As you can see, with what I've read, 2.5 billion is not going to do anything, anything at all, right? But the 2.5 billion, they will get it and try and use it to patch a few things up. But then they will tell they'll tell the creditors that the IMF is around and therefore we are going to be good because we've got somebody, a policeman standing behind us. So we're going to be actually able to raise money to be able to meet this terrifying list of repayment schedules, which is now creeping up. But what they forget to mention, which is the more dangerous thing, is that each of those bondholder groups, 2022 year group, 2023 year, I'm doing this deliberately because we like doing year group things. 2023 year group, 2026 year group, 2027 class 1 year group, 2027 class 2 year group. Every single one of these groups has to be negotiated with individually. Do you see? This is the negotiation thing. This is in addition to negotiating with the IMF, they are going to have to go to every single one of these year groups to get them to agree to reschedule, to push the thing back, to change the interest rate. They've got a what in political science and economics, etc., is called a coordination nightmare. How are they going to coordinate the negotiations with these 11 different groups who within themselves are disparate? Some of the bondholders are commodity traders, some of them, and this is all this information which the IMF now has to get out of them, which they've been sitting on. Charles Edubuahin, Ken Oforiatta have been sitting on this information. And I'm being really direct here because the IMF is going to come and say, apart from petrol, everything has to go up in price. The IMF's thing is very simple. If it can be increased in price, it will go up. And if it can be cut in expenditure, it will be cut. Free SHS is dead. Free TVET is dead. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And all this is going to be handed over to the next government, whether it is NDC or the next NPP. This is the situation that we are facing, and which nobody in the town fully understands, apart from this particular group of people who've been running this show. So we've got a coordination problem. We have to appoint a creditor committee, which is going to be headed by, who knows who. The Zambian one is headed, I think, by China and, I don't know, France or something. So there's all sorts of things which are completely separate from the negotiations with the IMF. And part of the reason I'm angry is that this is the insolvency and the cleaning up the mess stuff. And Gabby's Law Company in the UK is going to be one of the people who are going to bid, and they are likely to be selected and paid commercial fees of 10,000 US dollars or 10,000 pounds a day to tidy up the mess that they created. Yeah, this is actually where we are, and I don't have a problem saying these because, quite frankly, I'm not going to get work from this particular government, and they can't really do anything to me. Some people behave so well. Yeah, maybe they can send people to come and kill me in my house.
Oh no!
No, but I'm dead serious because this is the mess that. So Gabby should not be allowed to make money from cleaning the stuff up, and the people who caused the mess should not be renegotiating how to get us out of the mess. And yet,
but
this is
not like. Is this not like what's happening now in Britain, where we've turfed out the prime minister, but he's still in the house?
Well,
And then
maybe.
we've got these motley crew of people who are even worse than the Prime Minister in their ideas and all of that. But it has nothing to do with us, the normal people in the country. It's just the few Tories that are deciding what to do. Isn't it the same thing? Because what can Ghanaians do in this situation? One of the questions I wanted to ask you as you were carrying on was, haven't we've been to the IMF a few times, as you said. So if we have, and if this new government says we're not going to, and he changes his mind, there is rumbling, there is concern, but isn't there something else so that he sees that people are not happy about this and but then do people have solutions? Is there a solution?
Okay, look, I've talked quite a bit, so Kpabitey, please say something and I'll come back.
I mean, this is a really.
And I actually need to go. I actually need to go and get some water because I mentioned Ken's name so many times that maybe because he's a very powerful spiritual person. So maybe in my way, who knows?
Yeah, it's a perfect storm, and obviously, as Kwame was indicating, by the time the next government comes into power, the people who created this mess would have walked into the sunset without any responsibility at all. Yet they are still honest. They don't want to reduce government spending. They don't want to take action to, curtail the ostentatious lifestyles on the public purse. They are still employing their friends and relatives and on the public purse. I mean, the whole thing. Look at the fuel prices. It's gone through the roof. I just came back from Ghana about 4 weeks ago. And there is poverty everywhere. Everybody is suffering. I went to 3 regions of the country, and everywhere, whether it be family, friends, relatives, everybody was suffering, and I witnessed that. Now, the issue now is we need a new government. I think our constitution also doesn't help us, because it doesn't matter how people mess the system up, they can still escape without any responsibility, which is really terrible. If you look at what is happening in Sri Lanka, the population or the citizens there obviously understand that their leaders have ruined their lives and they needed to take action.
Yeah, but if you bring Sri Lanka in, excuse me, you bring in Sri Lanka into this discussion, and it's chaos and anarchy. there is just madness going on, and you see. So, and okay, when Kwame was speaking, he talked about transparency, and we do not have transparency. But isn't there a system where the people rise up, not like Sri Lanka, but people rise up to the point where new systems are put into place so that they do not walk into the sunset? And that somebody years ago suggested that when the people build the roads, like motorways and things, they should write the contractor and the engineer's name on the road, so that if something goes wrong, they are held accountable. Now, where is the accountability? That's where the question is really.
Yes, where is the accountability? Good question. I think the whole thing, our whole problem is the constitution that we have, because it gives too much power to the executives. The president of the country can just appoint about 3,000 or 4,000 public officials, yet he doesn't take responsibility for their actions. And this is the genesis of the problem. For example, now nothing has changed. Look, we have got 16 regional ministers. From 10 regional ministers, we've gone to 16 regional ministers. We've got a cabinet, this thing of, about 80 or 88 ministers. Why does a country like Ghana, 33 million people, just 33 million people, why should we duplicate everything? So the first thing is we need to reduce the cost of government by cutting back seriously on the people in the government who are supposed to be running the country efficiently. In the first place, productivity is even very, very low. Nobody takes responsibility for it. The ostentatious lifestyles of the public has cost us a lot of money. Could you imagine how much fuel some of these ministers or top officials are entitled to per our procedures or whatever? I don't know whether it is a government policy or how all these things came about. Nobody is prepared to reduce this sort of spending, and they don't want to. If you look at the travels, the foreign travels that is undertaken by these officials, yet the outcomes are so low. They don't want to deal with corruption. Corruption is insidious and costs Ghana a lot of money. They don't want to deal with waste. They don't want to deal with anything. All they want is procurement, and the procurement is done in such a way that, I mean, there is always contract mispricing, which is costing this country a hell lot of money. Look at the issue about the cathedral, and look at what is happening. So the president needs to sit down with his ministers and, I mean, come up with some drastic solutions, because at the end of the day, it's about money. You have money, you can't do anything. Now, our debt to GDP ratio, I was even hearing something just a few hours ago. Apparently, it's about 85%. If you compare that to our neighbor, Ivory Coast, yeah, okay, 85%. The MPP government came in late 2016, early 2017. It was 53.4%? Yeah, 53.4%. If you look at our neighbor, Ivory Coast, is about the same. Well, yes, population-wise, we are bigger than them.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Carry on. We are bigger than them, but yes, carry on.
Yes, but I mean, population-wise, but it's relatively almost the same country in terms of our economic structures, in terms of our culture, in terms of our resources, in terms of everything. Yet today, in 2022, Ivory Coast debt to GDP ratio is about 51.8%. And in this country, which was in civil war about, is it 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they are doing much better than us. So why should we allow our leaders to get away with this sort of irresponsibility? They don't produce accountability reports for any of the ministries. I was challenging the Minister of Education the other day about the lack of accountability reports. I mean, every year as a public organization, you are supposed to account for the public monies you spend, but they create such a muddle and a mess so that they can exploit the situation and just walk away. And no leader is going to succeed if they allow these things to happen on their watch. So these are the issues we need to be looking at. The waste in the system is too much. These people are riding around in $150,000 vehicles. You know what I mean? And the ordinary Ghanaian can't even get 1 square meal a day. We're just a country of 33 million people with so much resources. Why should we allow just a few greedy officials to exploit the situation to their advantage? I mean, it's criminal. Some of the things happening is criminal, and we can't get even people to prosecute these criminal issues. So we've got a very, very serious challenge on our hands, because other than that, look, we're not going anywhere fast.
Okay, can I come in here and make I guess make a few further points. Now, the Ivory Coast Ghana comparison you made is interesting, because what has happened is that up until recently, a lot of the money that bond holders would have lent to Cote d'Ivoire, they actually lent to us. Part of the reason Ken has been sitting like a little boy playing around in just money is because Cote d'Ivoire was not attractive. So a lot of the French investors, they're actually in Ghana. Do you see? That's one of the reasons why Ouattara is looking for money and he doesn't get it. but Ken gets it and Anado gets it. And in fact, that's actually one of the reasons why they wanted to come and steal our petroleum, because nobody, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Aha.
Yeah,
Okay, so
they're
that's
stealing
that.
our petroleum. Yeah.
Well, that's an old, that business is over now. So, but then I actually want to talk about the future over the next 3 or 4 years and the options that are available to us, some of which are positive and some of which are not. I'm not a prophet, fortunately, going back to the God issue, but I can nevertheless make some suggestions on the basis of trends. Now, the International Monetary Fund is going to come in and it's going to say that they won't raise the price of petrol, but anything else whose price can be raised, they're going to raise it because the money is needed to pay the bond holders to make the bond holders happy. Because if the bondholders decide that we are in default, right, which they can, because we may actually be in default, we may not actually be able to pay in 2026, right? Then we'll have a situation where it is possible for any bondholder to seize in Rotterdam and Amsterdam cocoa beans that have been sent there by Cocoa Board, right? They have a right to seize the cocoa beans and sell it to get their money back. And courts in Rotterdam and Amsterdam will allow them to seize our cocoa beans to sell to pay the debt. The reason I'm saying is that this has actually happened in Ghana before, because when this was another international law court case that I was involved in, when the Ara Libertad, the Argentinian ship, came to Ghana, and Ace Ankoma, on behalf of the people who Argentina, on behalf of Argentina creditors, Ace Ankoma went to Tema and seized the ship on behalf. Yes, that's what that thing was about. Argentinian planes were being seized all over the place, and even anything remotely commercial that we actually send somewhere to sell, the creditors whom we have defaulted on can seize those things. This is where we are going. If this rescheduling that they are talking about doesn't work, I personally don't think that it's going to be that easily worked out, because you've got 11 different groups of creditors whom you have to agree to shuffle around. So maybe you're going to shuffle around only the creditors in the next decade. I don't know. These are all coordination questions which have to be sorted out, right? And the government is not discussing any of these things, partly because people like Gabby intend to be there to get paid commercial fees for doing fuck all. Do you see? This is part of Kiki has disappeared. Okay, so this is part, but now as to what's coming next, if the IMF, after doing because the IMF has actually said that they're not coming back to us until the first quarter of 2023. So they're going to go through everything, and they are then going to do a debt sustainability analysis. And they're also going to tell the government to go off and try and do rescheduling with the debtors through something called the common framework. There's all these technical things that are going to happen. In the meantime, the government has to meet its obligations unless the creditors agree that they are going to suspend interest and principal payments during the period of the negotiation, which is one of the reasons why the IMF is important, because the IMF has the power to tell them to not demand any money during the period that we are trying to work things out. But if the private creditors disagree, they can go to court in the US and get a court order which says that they can carry on with seizing our things and taking our things. this is actually objectively where we are if we default on a single payment of either interest or principal. And you have to remember that we've got a large principal payment to make in 2022. I don't know exactly when, and another one in 2023. So they intend using that $2.5 billion from the IMF to meet the immediate, do you see? And then they will roll the problems over to the next government, NPP or NDC, to resolve. This is the situation that we are in. In the meantime, on the labor front, because people understand this, what I'm talking about, they have actually started putting their feet in the sand, and virtually everybody is going on strike. So the IMF is actually meeting the situation where people are going on strike. Now, Brenya is asking about solutions and so on. Actually, my position at the moment is that we don't need to talk about solutions. We need to actually have a proper crisis. And then people will be interested in actually implementing solutions. Because nothing has happened. Nothing bad has happened in the town to make people serious. Nothing bad has happened in the town. So we need to really be seriously shut down, and then a coalition of people who will evolve who are serious. So, I mean, there are all sorts of solutions, probably, but is there a political will to actually implement?
Yeah.
So I'm perfectly happy with this current situation. I actually want it to get dramatically worse, because it is only out of that perhaps people are going to get serious. Yeah, Brennan, because so far I've told you what you know. That's not true. I have not told you. I've not told you what you know already. All that I've done is to emphasize the gravity of the crisis. And yes, I love revolution simply because you need something to fix people's attention. And if this crisis doesn't fix people's attention, well, then we need an even worse crisis to fix people's attention. Because we ask for solutions, yeah, but we need to fix people attention. Yeah. So anyway, so that's my solution. Things need to get worse so that we can fix people's attention, and then it is possible to do some things. And as to what we do next, that's another whole program, which involves taking apart all sorts of assumptions. I'm not interested in doing that right now, because we have to take all sorts of things apart first. So I'm rubbing my hands with a lot of glee, because it's going to get much, much worse before it gets better. And maybe people will stop praying and start thinking about what are we going to do next, or they'll start doing some serious things even as they pray, because that is part of the problem. So that's enough from me. All that I actually wanted to do was to give people the picture of the gravity of the debt claims. The government's not doing it. This information is publicly available on the internet, and they want us to think about talking to the IMF when it's the private creditors who are actually the issue. Anyway, so wait, Kiki, because that's what me. I finished all that I have to say.
Okay, well, Kiki has disappeared for a little while. So with regards to solutions, obviously, well, I spoke about reducing the cost of government, get rid of the duplication of government responsibilities. For example, we used to have 10 regions. They've increased it to 16 regions. Even there are regions who can barely, survive in terms of governance because there's no money. Now they have committed themselves to building, governance structures in all these new regions. They have committed themselves to, employing more people into bureaucracy, when There are regions like, for example, the former Northern region. It's vast, it's huge. Most of it is empty land. Why would you go and create a region in an area without any, productivity? Or you can't tax everybody there. I mean, how are you going to get the money? For example, waste in the system. Wastage alone in Ghana government is just so huge. If we can even make attempts to reduce those sort of waste, at least we can save some money somewhere. The corruption, as you know, is terrible. And at the moment, there is no effective means of fighting corruption, as obviously can be attested by the statements of the previous, the corruption czar. What was his name again? Is the one who was in charge of corruption, the Nado appointed, and he walked away because he didn't get enough support to deal with the matter. What's his name? No, I think it's the former NDC Attorney General. It's terrible. Then there is the issue of, there was an issue of, how are we going to get money? Now, okay, our main produce is cocoa. Now, cocoa beans, even say for more than 10 years now, before we even buy the cocoa from the farmers, we need to go to Europe to go and borrow cocoa board syndicated loans at huge costs. By the time we finish buying the cocoa with the monies we borrowed, they can't even recoup all the monies that they need to repay the syndicated loans with. So again,
yes, but the people who went and did the syndicated loans, have they made money? You see the trick? Do you see that trick? It's the same thing that Ken and Charles Edubuaim have done.
Yes.
Same trick. They have gone and they made themselves the preferred people to arrange the debts.
Yeah.
They paid themselves commercial fees for arranging the debts. Do you see? So they have made money. And they now intend to pay themselves commercial fees for cleaning up the mess. So this is the game and this is the trick. Right. Now, as to how long it can go on for, I have no idea. But it is becoming clearer and clearer to a lot of people that they are not going. And actually, let me say something about the current faction leading the NPP. The current faction leading the NPP are very unpopular within the NPP itself because they've not shared the proceeds.
Exactly.
See, they've shared. They've taken it all and they've not shared anything out so people can at least actually chop small. You see? So yes, no, these are all issues. Now, another question is, so if there are going to be cuts in expenditure, are they going to be cuts in, and I'm going into a dangerous area, and Brenyan knows why I'm going to, are they going to be cuts in expenditure relative to the police? Are they going to be cuts in expenditure relative to the army? These are all the questions that are going to have to be thrown up during this whole IMF negotiation process. Are we going to stop free SHS?
Are we going to stop the cathedral? Are we going to stop the cathedral?
Well, that's the cathedral stuff. I've done my God thing, so I don't even need to talk about that one. But yeah, so this is where we are. Unfortunately, there's no clear, for the government, there's no clear way forward for at least another 4 or 5 months. For the country itself, there's no clear way forward anyway. And all that we have to do, I guess, is wait and see what the IMF finally comes up with. And then we've got another big fight on our hands. So, Kiki, can you close the show? Because really, you need to have a separate show on, other than the IMF, what can we do? That's a completely separate show. And it can't be addressed. It can't be addressed, with this. So what are the solutions? I'm sorry. The crisis is so deep that there are no easy solutions.
And the fact of the matter is, you're not seeing any serious attempt from even those at the talked. They're just coming up with these slogans and, you know, these slogans and sound bites. You know, and I think the issue also is our people are easily swayed with these slogans. Therefore, they cannot stand up and challenge some of these assertions that are being made, because it looks like everybody wants to avoid the evidence of the calamity coming, and thus, you know, we're going to do this, we're going to do free SHS. Nobody talks about how these things are going to be funded. Nobody talks about it. Even the taxation issue. Look at how muddled it is. There are people they're giving tax exemptions to all these foreign companies coming in the mining sector, in the banking sector, and I mean, these are serious, huge tax holidays. So there is a deep hole. I mean, everywhere is leaking around Ghana government, you know, and they can't even tax the rich like Koforidua and co, because answer to the allegations that he's hiding his money abroad. I remember when we went to the first Eurobond of the 750 million, when Kufuor was in power. Data Bank had about 12.5% at 8.5% over 10 years. And look at all that money. I don't think any of that money came to Ghana. I don't think so. So these are some of the issues. I mean, this oil exploration, they've given it to their friends and family. They made there were windfalls all over the place, and they all took their money to offshore accounts, which is a record. And government is not doing anything about it. So I don't know how we're going to even get some money to, you know, deal with these liabilities that we have dug ourselves into.
Okay, well, the show is over. Kiki from her hideout is closing the show.
Okay.
So
all right.
We will catch up again.
Okay.
Later.
Thank you so much, Kwame. And my greetings to your cousin, Dr. Ampong, Emmanuel.